magical infinite fucking garden. Yet another week, but today we have a very special DAO launch project and longtime front lines of decentralized governance friend, Makoto Inoue. Is that how you say it, Makoto?
Yes.
Cool, I'm so stoked to talk to you, man. I bet Ben and Dee can feel the same way because, well, everybody knows that ENS just went DAO and with a pretty explosive and well-distributed airdrop while we're at it. So can you like just do a brief introduction of you for whoever is very fresh in our audience and doesn't know who you are, and then let's get in the thick of the governance of this future DAO. How about that?
Sounds good. I think this is the first kind of event I joined without knowing anything about the agenda. So it's a bit scary, but yeah, sure. I'm Makoto, and where do I start? I'm dev ENS. So ENS started back in 2016 as a kind of personal project of Nick Johnson. While I think even before he was, so initially I think I got into Ethereum back in 2016 March. I think Nick found out about Ethereum about January or February. And the first or second thing he did was he kind of half joined a project called Swarm. I don't know if you guys know, it's like a kind of decentralized file storage like IPFS and Arweave. And back then, Ethereum used to be called World Computer, and they had a kind of three system: Ethereum as a computing unit, and there's a one called Whisper, which acts as a messaging system, and Swarm as a file system. And I think he was there very briefly. So like IPFS, there's a kind of notion of something called content ID, which is a hash of the entire content, which is kind of guaranteed the uniqueness per content, but it's almost impossible for human being to understand. So I think that was the first use case. He thought, oh, okay, you need a names system. So we just got it. Then he started 2016. I happened to know him because he was in London. And when he first presented back in June, I happened to be there. That was a kind of second Ethereum meetup. Then I kind of knew him. He came to the meetup I used to host. I used to host, or still occasionally host, event called London Ethereum Code Up, which is a very small meetup for like coders to talk more about code. So quite often, like it's very small a meetup. So it was like 5-10 people. So we actually have this projector and we actually share the code and the people going through code and talk about code, that kind of stuff. And I knew his project ENS, then launched 2017, and then I think 2018. I think 2016 he joined the Ethereum Foundation, and again he was doing it as a side. But then he launched, and that was a kind of crazy at that moment, that time. Then 2018 when he got the grants from Ethereum Foundation, I was also thinking about kind of doing full time on crypto. Then I just talked to him like, hey, how are you doing? And then he just said like, yeah, I'm thinking about starting a company. Would you like to join? And I can say, yeah, maybe. Then since then I've been working for last 3 years. And role wise, I kind of do jack of all trades. Like I write Solidity code, I write front end, I write some of the back end, and I write like SQL using the Dune analytics. I write some subgraph. I organize events. I used to be the mod of the Discord until Alicia took over. So just do pretty much everything.
Oh my God. And as someone who has been there since day one and watching ENS become core infrastructure for Ethereum and then helping steward this baby to like extreme utility for all of us, is it delightful or hard to see it go down?
It's still kind of hard to believe. The thing about DAO, it just came up. Like we had that idea about kind of decentralization because if people know, there's a it's kind of similar to DNS, but there's a hierarchy of like subdomain uh, and the second level domain, top level domain .eth. Then there's root, and the root has kind of some special power, and we knew that which is managed by 7multisigs from like some notable Ethereum people, and we had an idea of like we had to decentralize at some point, but we weren't quite sure when to do. And we had I think every year we had something called ENS workshop, and the governance and the DAO came up again and again. And I think initially Nick was a bit not skeptical, but like he was especially like worried about kind of hostile takeover. Like how would you actually prevent that people just if you do Tonku launcher and stuff, just take the coin and they just take over that kind of stuff. Still, I think it's technically possible, but the way we distribute, I think it's extremely difficult to do it right now. But now, like I think especially since last year, there are lots of DAO tools popping up. So I thought, and that so DAO space was maturing. Plus, we were in a very kind of small scale for very very long time until last year. We had a couple of hundred registration per day. I thought like, oh, that's not too bad. And then only from February, March, we start seeing spike that like when like NFTs start getting momentum, like people kind of discover that ENS is actually NFT and it's actually one of the oldest NFT.
Right.
Then people start getting notice to it, and also we started pushing the idea of like rather than using domain name similar to DNS, we start pitching as it's more like Web3 username. It's more like your identity. It's like so with that aspect, I think people start noticing. Then I think it's July, August. If you look into the Dune Analytics, I wrote quite a lot of them. There's some monthly revenues. Like I think it's July, August, we got like about 2,000 names registration per month, and we got because we charge $5 annual. Then like I think we got like a couple million with revenue, which is kind of unbelievable when we first started. We kind of thinking how long it takes to start earning $1 million a year. Probably another 5 years. Then like when suddenly it just came right now. Like I think last couple of days we had 8,000, 7,000 registration, and then like David Mihal finally put like a protocol revenue list, and we are suddenly like top 10 or something like that. So then with that revenue comes with the responsibility of how do we distribute, and that's a way bigger task for small teams. We have like less than 10 people working on to just decide what to spend. So I think that now we saw now is a good time, and here we are. But yeah, with the launch, I don't know, like people have a different opinion, but I didn't expect how big it's going to become. It's kind of unbelievable.
Yeah, it's amazing. So you guys were already making revenue and doing pretty well, and now you also have this token, which has done pretty well over the last few days. So how are you going to handle this? Do you have two treasuries, or are you going to have like your normal revenue in one treasury and the token in the
Yeah,
DAO?
so important thing is that even for the $5 registration, it's not under the control of ENS team. And organization-wise, like when Nick founded a company, we created a company called True Names Limited, and that's non-profit company in Singapore. And we are the kind of development team of the ENS. And it was mostly run with grants we received from Ethereum Foundation. I think we also got it from like Filecoin, Binance, ETC Labs, this kind of stuff. And then we also did back in 2019. We did a kind of short name auction in partnership with OpenSea, and that raised about 1 million back in 2019. So these grants and the short name auction was main source of kind of funds to get our team sustaining our team, and everything else is actually still in a smart contract, which only 7 like multi-sigs members can control. And so far, I think as far as I know, only one we requested a multi-sig to withdraw only once, which was back in May. Nick, so like we got $1 million grants from EF, and now that we got quite substantial revenue, it's time to kind of pay back. But rather than pay back to EF, it's better to pay forward. So he decided to basically give equal amounts to Gitcoin grants. So like I think we donated Gitcoin. Unfortunately, I think we said we gave equivalent amount of ETH. That was in May. So that was the height of the bull market, the fast bull market. So it was about $1 million. But I think by the time it went there, it crashed. So it was 700,000. So that was the only time we got. Apart from that, we haven't actually touched. So now we still have, I think, for the short name auction and the grants, I think we have like 3-4 years of runway. But beyond that, I think we are also just one of the like people who actually have to ask DAO to kind of propose that, hey, we're going to do this much. Can we have this? So like we are kind of my understanding is we just becomes one of the member of the DAO ask treasury. So that's, and I think it's going to DAO. And also for the token itself, I don't know exactly how. I think token distribution, I think half is in DAO, right? Like if I think 25% airdrop and some 25% went to team and about 100 different external contributors. So like 50% is for the future usage of DAO, and I think it's managed on DAO. I'm not quite sure whether these token treasury and the DAO revenue will sit on the same contract. I'm not quite aware, but like my understanding is it should be part of the DAO.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so, I think one of the first proposal is we have to ask 7 multisig to transfer some of the revenue treasury to DAO or something like that. I'm not quite sure. I think it's something like that, but yeah, it might be false, but that's my brief understanding. Yeah.
So I guess on the other side of this is the actual DAO, and there's the delegates and how that's kind of playing out. Do you have any opinion on seeing like who's becoming the largest delegates? Did you guys expect that?
Let me just see tally. I haven't looked at the voters so far. So one of the stuff I think that delegates got great inspiration from, whole the notion of delegates started from Compound. But we got a huge inspiration from Gitcoin when they did the token launch. They actually asked, I was actually asked by Gitcoin team to be so-called steward, which is basically the delegates. And I think when they launched, we had about 20 to 50, maybe Yela knows more, like kind of pre-filled delegates. Then like I think people, and all you had to do was like you had to post a comment on this government forum, and I think manually Gitcoin team was adding more delegates, but at the starting point it had about, I think it was about 50, and that was around like top 30 or something like that. And because most of the people who receive coin are the people who used to donate to many projects, and many of those, I think, steward came from the project which were either donor, like the project which got donated. So I have another project called Kickback, which I think this, DAO HAUS guys, all came from Meta Cartel, and the Kickback is actually one of the first grantee of the Meta Cartel. And we also kind of benefited greatly from Gitcoin, and we used to receive lots of grants, and we also give bounty, that kind of stuff. So that way we are kind of delegate, steward. But so I think when they saw it, they kind of knew who's going to be on top, because whoever gets like good high amounts on their Gitcoin round also did quite well on their steward delegation round. Whereas in our case, we just said, we just announce it, we'll just wait it, and we'll let anyone in. That was initially, I said, I think 1 week is too short. We should have like 2 weeks or 1 month, because who's gonna apply for delegates? But it turned out that we got over 1,000 people wrote into forum that I want to be delegate. To be honest, I think half the people just misunderstood that just if you become the delegate, you might get more coins. So there's lots of people just put yes, 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 yes.
Right.
I have a basic Web3 skills, but we also had extra hurdle and gas cost that you basically not only just posting in the forum, but also put that forum post in one of the text record you can set. So one of the things people might not know much is until recently was a primary use of the ENS is to set ACM address, but you can basically put anything. And we have a thing called text record where you can put arbitrary key value store. And one of the usage we promoting recently is put the avatar field where you can put your NFT information so that it shows in when you sign into a Uniswap or 1inch, it shows up the avatar and your ENS name, that kind of stuff. But we also use that to put the delegate information. So for that, couple of days ago, I think by the time we launched, we had about 450 delegates, which is insane. And
that's crazy.
Yeah, and now I think on top one of the and another difference is I think on the Gitcoin steward, these core team member are not necessarily the delegates steward, right? Like Owaki or Scott are not the delegate itself. Maybe Yela is maybe one of the delegate, but that's pretty much. Whereas we have actually Bradley and Nick both joined as a delegate, which was kind of we had a debate of whether we should have our team member be the delegate or not. Then I think in the end we just said it's up to individual. So I decided not to be delegate, but apparently, but we kind of wish at least we need one person to be a delegate, because one of the stuff is we have I think 18% token allocated to the team, but it's all locked and vested. So when fast tokens got launched, we actually have no power to even delegate. So
Wow,
I actually, I only had 2 or 3 names. I have 2 or 3 addresses where I got a ENS name. So I got pretty much about same amount of ENS tokens. So I don't have many. So I think most of the team member doesn't have. So we saw it's kind of, if you think of gradual decentralization, probably it's too scary that we don't become delegate at all. So I'm glad both Brownie and Nick just stood up, and they are one of the highest. I think one unexpected, and we can see that. So now I'm looking at the ranking. So number 1 is Brownie, number 3 is Nick, and a couple of people I did expect is Alex Vanderson. He is in number 6 position right now, and he is actually one of the original member when he first launched in 2017. It was pretty much Alex, Nick, and a couple of other people voluntarily did the launch voluntarily. So he was kind of really OG. At that time, I was one of the audience, just like everybody else. But he was playing the pivotal role, and he took a great role as a one by ACM Foundation member. So I knew he's gonna go up. And Mike DeMarius, and the Rainbow Wallet, they are known as ENS kind of fairies, where people just giving the names to people. So these are no, only Dark Horse was Coinbase suddenly tweet will be delegate, give all the vote to me. They tweet it from their Twitter account, and suddenly I think at some point it was number 1. So that's Coinbase or complete dark horse. Another interesting surprise is, I don't know how to pronounce it. Is she256.is? My understanding is kind of an organization which promotes kind of gender diversity. And before the token launch started, I did actually kind of tweeted a couple of my kind of female friends as my recommended delegate, because it's kind of most of these crypto is kind of a sausage fest, like a bunch of dudes out there, and I think that's not really great. So we saw like, yeah, it's better to have a female representing, and yeah, I think Simona is doing somewhere well as well. I can't see. Simona is number 13, and yeah, but C256 is doing pretty well. So that's kind of interesting. But like I think we are more pleased the fact that the number is nicely spread. That currently the highest voting power is 0.57%. So no one has more than, no one has 1%. So it's hard for someone to just have one proposal and force it through. So I think the diversity of the voting is more, I think, important.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Do we have more input on how this DAO is going to work in practice?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's quite an unknown area. I think we haven't really discussed how it forms. So one of the stuff actually, let me check. Snapshot. So another thing we did differently to the Gitcoin is that we have something so-called constitution. That when you before you even decide a delegate, you have to go through like 4 different things. Like 1, name ownership shall not be infringed. 2, fees are primary and incentive mechanism. 3, income funds, ENS, and other public goods. And 4, ENS introduces a global namespace. So we briefly explain what that means, why we believe that's very important. And then at the first time, even before they get the coin, they had to vote, each one of them agree or disagree. And when you sign the signature, what it was doing backend is actually it was sending a snapshot voting, and the snapshot is one of the most popular off-chain kind of voting mechanism, and we are actually doing it. So if you go to snapshot.org and if you go to ENS part, there's actually the voting of the ratification of the ENS DAO constitution. And it started on November 8th, ends in November 16th. So even though you can claim token for 6 months, the initial constitution voting ends next week. So it's kind of recommended that you guys do claim if you want to be reflected. And currently, each 4 section, all of them got over 90% agreement. So we are already, and this we got so far, how many? I think 40,000. We got snaps. I don't know how many it says. Yeah, I think so. One mistake was we forgot to tell snapshot team. So we told I think we told graph team, because we are using the graph to subgraph to kind of get a sub list, and we gave a heads up like, hey guys, we are starting this time, so make sure your environment is okay. We are still not using the decentralization version. We are still using their hosted version. So we saw like, yeah, we should warn them, but we didn't tell them at all. Then we ended up basically DDoSing the snapshot. So I think some people have struggled passing through this constitution signing, because we are literally like throttling snapshot. But now I think we got one of the I think this is one of the this is the biggest voting of this snapshot. I think that's what Fabian told us. Yeah, so it is already happening. Beyond that, I start seeing a couple of interesting suggestions about. So there's one guy, not one guy, Richard Moore, known as Rick Moon, also of ESAS JS, which is one of the most popular Ethereum client library. He already started posting the gist saying about proposing the change on the fee structure. That I think some of you guys mentioned, like, hey, I got $5 a year annual fee, but I paid like $100 for the gas. So what he suggested is like maybe we should, if you do spend the gas price, like after like London hard fork, we have like kind of predictable gas fee using the base fee or something. So you can actually get what's the current gas fee on chain. So he suggested, why don't we just if you get 100, if you end up spending $100 on gas, why don't we give us 20 years uh, duration registration instead of just doing wasting everything like gas, and something like that. The way people argue, they usually say, okay, I propose this and this one is qualified for constitution section 1 and this also qualifies section 2, so each conversation is already forming around whether this complies with constitution section. And if you do actually want to change one of the section, I think you have to have a higher quorum, like 65% or something like that. Yeah, so it's interesting. I think it's no official proposal yet, but already some discussion popping up. I noticed.
Yeah, that's actually really cool that it's being used as a kind of a template even for getting some proposals started already. Do you think that the ENS token will ever be used for buying the names, or will it continue to be in use?
That's a good question. Use use it in the bar and all that stuff.
Yeah, I guess it might be kind of a dumb idea because it add complexity, and then I don't know.
Yeah, and I think people have asked like, what's the utility of ENS token, and the simple answer is just a governance token, no more, no less, right? And what are they more? I think trying to add utility, I'm not quite sure. It's just like you can, but why would you, right? Like there's no right, no wrong answer about why you would do that. Then like, yeah, I don't know whether that as it might be some like super cool tokenomics, but one of the I think important thing is like it has to be very simple. That like ENS, like I since last summer, like I first created Discord, and until probably May, when first Kevin, also known as Validator, is until he took over, I was kind of doing the de facto Discord support guy, and it's one of the first app people use. So the user don't even know Uniswap. They have no idea what uh, DeFi is. Right? Like we are like kind of like Ethereum emojis. So like we basically understand basic thing about how gas work, all the stuff. But I met so many people who had no clue, nothing at all. And so for them, I think it's very important to make it super simple. Otherwise, if you throw the cool tokenomics, they just don't get it, right? Or you just confuse more people. So yeah, I think it could be, but like unless you can prove or demonstrate or justify why it's way better than just charging in ETH.
Well, maybe to get
Yeah,
back to the kind of DAO stuff. So now that you have this huge community fund, it's gonna be really interesting to see how smaller work streams and work groups start forming, and what ends up being built around ENS. Do you think there's going to be a lot of new stuff, or are you going to stay kind of as this core platform? Or
I hope like so our core team is still very small, like less than we have Nick,
I heard it's
me,
like
Jeff.
8 people.
Yeah, and I think Dev is like Nick, me, Jeff, Leon, Mohammed, so 5, I think. Then like Alicia, community management, Kevin, support, and Bradley do the communication, head of ops. Yeah, so it's actually 8, and we have some part-time people. So yeah, we can't do everything. So anything is, especially the kind of some cool application. And then one of the stuff I think we talk about is signing with Ethereum is some initiative, like Vitalik was kind of saying like, what's the easiest, like Ethereum has kind of, what was it, something neutral login system where you don't give away password to the Web2s and that kind of stuff. And these kind of stuff, I think initially, Brownlee asked, hey, do you want to do it? And they're like, I'm busy. And he said, fine. And then he spoke to EF, and we had that kind of joint grants. And then I think that was a far successful case that we brought other team to work on it rather than core team to do. So like something like that, yeah, I think there's opportunities for people to start proposing, hey, I think this is very important, we should do it, and yeah, maybe we ask for budget. I hope that kind of things comes up. Yeah.
I mean, there's got to be some side project or weird project ideas you've had all these years that you didn't have time to do that now you can either get
Absolutely.
people from the DAO to take your role and you can go spearhead something weirder, or vice versa. You can use the community to seed ideas for these experimental tentacle project sort of kind of thing, right?
Yeah, interestingly, so just before the DAO, we had there's an East Global Hackathon where we usually just get like only $1,000 for the bounty, but at that time, like we saw, like, yeah, let's up it for 3,000, and then we are before you usually if you do like simple integration, name lookup will give you 500, like $100 or something. We just said this time, let's not do that. Let's ask people to build something like extending ENS or something. And we do actually wrote down the spreadsheet of like things we want. And I think we had like uh, for like we had a dozen submissions, but most of them didn't really qualify. But like we had like 3 or 4 good submissions, and we gave the prize. And I see, and during the last ENS workshop, we have do it like biannually. We asked these people and also other community to kind of pitch in the at the end of the workshop. And I think some of them actually saw them as a delegate. So they must have received a couple of delegate votes. So I'm kind of hoping that these people kind of now that at that time all they got is like $1,000 or $2,000 or something like that. But now, yeah, they can actually go if they get delegate power, they can just say, hey, this project maybe I wanna do it full time. Can you support us?
Right.
That would be good too. I think I should find where the list is. Yeah.
Yeah, you should probably know where that list is.
It's somewhere. Yeah.
I think like probably Van and Deegan have their own ideas of what could be built on yes.
Well, I think the text records are interesting and like how that can be used in different ways for various different composability for sure. But I think in general, yeah, I like the idea of like ENS is like such a awesome primitive thing that can be used in a lot of different ways. So yeah, just in general, I think it is kind of interesting to think of what the community can do now. That it's not just a few of you who have like limited time and things to do things. Now there's like resources and support for anybody in the community to build like these other things. So really exciting to see what comes out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one thing I've always felt with ENS is it's so awesome, such a great primitive. It's like it's hard to use it. It's hard to use it to its full potential. So I don't know if there's still any plans on doing something with rollups or
Yeah. That's actually something I've been working on for the last 2 or 3 months. Is we have an idea about integrating with L2, and we used to call it Durin, but during the last ENS workshop, we announced a partnership with Chainlink, and now it's called CCIP Read. It's something Chainlink. I should know. Inter something protocol, maybe. Yeah.
Just to give you a time check, we're at the half hour, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, maybe I'll just spend a couple minutes on that CCIP stuff. Is that it's a kind of generic framework to let domain owner to choose which platform to go. Quite often, in a layer 2 strategy, it's something like some component decides like okay, we'll go to this chain and that's it. But we are kind of fundamental building stone for everything, so we can't make a decision for everybody. So the architecture we are thinking is, because domain again, ENS has a hierarchy system, that parent domain governs everything about the subdomain. So if I have matoken.is, I have artist matoken.is, which I use as a NFT artist things. Matoken.is has a full control over subdomain, and some wallets or dApps used to issue subdomain. For example, prime example is Argent wallet, Argent XYZ. Until gas hits high, they used to issue subdomain to every single users. And what we want to encourage is, for example, Argent to say, I want to go to this domain. I want to store ENS record into this specific L2. And if the parent domain decide, and if they create all the subdomains, everything under this Argent or XYZ, the data is updating on the specific L2. And if, for example, Reddit already decided, Reddit says I want to use Arbitrum. So then Arbitrum, Reddit can point their so-called resolver smart contract to Arbitrum, so that once they create a subdomain, all the subdomain data are stored in chain. And we have a primitive that as long as it's roll up, like optimistic roll up and GK roll up, there's a way for us to verify the state of the data on L2 on L1. So, and we create some sort of notion called gateway, which is URL, which is external service. So when you look up for like, hey, give me the ETH address for like artist.matoken.eth, artist, if artist domain subdomain doesn't exist on L1, we ask the parents, hey, Matoken, do you know what artist is? And if Matoken, if has a special L2 resolver, and if I say I go to Arbitrum, you show the gateway URL, just like for example, NFT metadata URL, just like Web2 URL. You go there, you get fed the data, but you can use that as a proof to verify the state. As long as it's roll up, we have a ways to do. Then idea is like no matter which chain each dApp decides to store the user data is, when people said when I send the ETH address to Reddit, which is in Arbitrum, or Argent, which is in, I don't know, like Starkware or zkSync or wherever stuff, you can retrieve the data without switching the network. That's the whole idea. And I think this will be kind of make or break moment. That if this doesn't become production in the next year or year after, we are getting to the point gas get too high, ETH get too high, that or now registering ETH name costs $1,000, then it really put off the users. But what we want to happen is dApps do whatever the way to register your domain on ENS, and it might cost $1,000. But if you let user to issue subdomain almost cost free on a layer 2, that's a great way to kind of solve the problem of the high gas fee. So that's kind of plan. And I think there's so much we need to do, and we can't just do with 8 people. So that could be interesting. Like we want to have a different streams. Like hey, we want the Arbitrum stream, Optimism stream, that kind of stuff, and then working simultaneously would be quite exciting.
Yeah, that's awesome. That could be really cool.
In the big vision of a world where you have all of these core infrastructure, public goods being managed by decentralized organizations, and talented people can just approach to build. It's becoming true. It's amazing. I saw this NPR sort of audio snippet interview with N from Seed Club, and it's just becoming so real. Do you have any fears or thoughts about like when DAOs have their NFT moment, when the normie world gets their head around DAOs? How do you think it's going to happen?
Sorry, I didn't quite understand the question.
Well, I mean, I think between the next 6 months to 2 years, we're going just how it happened with NFTs, that a lot of people that you never thought would be talking about NFTs, or even like Shiba or whatever, reached out to you probably to talk about all these things, right? People who knew you're in crypto. I think this is going to happen to DAOs really soon, and I'm trying to wrap my head around on the challenges of that moment. So I'm just taking advantage of the fact that you're very smart and you're here to see what you think about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I went to, so just before the launch of the token, we had I'm based in London, and I went to an event called NFT LDN, which is kind of hosted right after NFT NYC, and that was in an art gallery in the middle of like London, and the audience is pretty different. That like if you go to like DAO, was it DAO Fest used to do, DAO is now. Like you see a bunch of kind of purist decentralized maxi, but there's a bunch of normies, but they do know DAO, and they show great interest on the DAO. Like even though it was an NFT event, they had a whole section about how to DAO, and I went with a panel of the, I think what was it? There's 3 people, and there was one MeBits DAO. So there's a collective DAO formed around NFT, and there's another one. I forgot the name, but there's a woman. She created a DAO which is focused on collecting, I think, black artists, black female artists, I think. Yeah, and they're all talking about how to form the DAO. So like it's interesting that like NFT is how people brought to this event, but like people knows like to make it scalable, DAO is the fundamental kind of building block. So people are trying to figure out how to DAO. Yeah, so it's already there. And another point, like I bump into like an artist is very kind of famous artist, and then like I didn't know like some musician, then like I just realized, oh, then like she was even thinking about making DAO, which is like, oh wow, DAO is really like it hasn't made it yet, but it's almost there.
I think one thing I've noticed on that note
Yeah.
recently with the article that you spoke to as well is that I think for many years a lot of us were DAO nerds and trying to, like all super weird stuff and it's hard to explain. And a lot of us were trying to explain it with like many words and things. But once now there's like so many people who kind of get it, and I think so, which means now there's like many different ways for people to tell that story to their own peers in ways that make sense to them, and I think people are just getting it really quickly these days.
Yeah.
I think still that 6 to 2 months for sure. Like you said,
Yeah.
Felipe, there's still like a lot of places to go, but I can very easily see that people are getting it way quicker than they were like a couple years ago, right, Makoto?
Yeah. I think we completely forgot to tell about this thing is that I am the first DAO House user, right? And back in 2019.
Shit.
Yeah, we completely forgot to mention it. I'm like
Makoto's also
yeah.
responsible for me summoning my first DAO and DAO House as well.
Yes. So back to the kickback, the startup I did, like so it was an event focused app, and that was Osaka back in 2019, and that Osaka is kind of my hometown. I wanted to do some big DAO party, but like I won a very small event, but like I didn't have don't know much about how to do big ones. So I just saw, I think that before that summer, we went to East Berlin, and I was hacking Moloch. The front end was kind of so tight. So I tried to do some, I think I remember, I tried to integrate with Nexus Mutual that as soon as people's DAO's money gets a fund, it automatically goes into Nexus Mutual so that DAO funds get basically insured. That's what I want to try to do, but I kind of gave up in the middle. Then like I saw, Ben and the Dika and the Sam, like 3 of you guys, like just on the corner and just hacking, and I was just saying, "Hey, what are you doing?" And they're saying like, "Oh, I'm creating DAO Builder," and I thought, "Oh, that's what I need." And then at the same time, I just said, "Hey, I want to create a DAO for the DevCon Osaka, which is happening in that autumn." So we actually made a proposal. I made a proposal, but like I didn't know how to fork Morocco or anything. So we kind of cut the deal to say, hey, we want 10 ETH to form a party DAO. The sole purpose is just get drunk that's awesome, awesome DAO, best DAO ever. And we got a 10 East from Meta Cartel, and as soon as we got it, we rage quit hard. I think we the rage quit is 9 East. Then we split half with you guys to kind of build it's called Orochi DAO. And I think when we first formed, we had to spend 3 weeks just to deploy contract because everything was broken. Like every version 1, nothing works, right? Yeah. But that was a fun moment actually.
That was super fun getting on the calls with you and
every night, I was in UK, and so during the evening, and that's your morning, noontime. Like I said, shall we try one more? Oh, it didn't work.
Like midnight your time.
Yeah, shall we try one more? And I was so sleepy middle of the night, and they're like, oh no, it doesn't work. Let's try again tomorrow. Yeah, we did it for 3 weeks or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to put it in context, though, 10 ETH was not worth what it's worth now back then.
Yeah.
But we did. I mean, it was probably worth like $1,000. But but the Orochi thing turned out to be pretty awesome. And then you guys in Osaka did a huge whiskey party. In Denver, we had a art gallery party. You did something in ECC, so that was a pretty cool first DAO, I think.
Yeah.
It's also the reason why we all met.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And
pretty much.
Yeah. Drink, we all get drunk basically.
I very much remember the day that my talk got accepted, my workshop got accepted for DevCon. I was in full node and I was crying in the bathroom, and everybody thought I was an idiot because everyone was going to Japan. And I was like the Brazilian boy that dreamed going to Japan my entire life, never thought it would actually happen. And then I go to Japan, get invited to a whiskey tasting at some fancy ass place that I've never even imagined I'd be inside. And then I meet all you people, and I was like, fucking hell, this is lucky. And here we are.
Yeah, but you know the story is so many people crashed, and we ran out of fund very quickly in the first 30 minutes or hour. So we had to do the emergency DAO meeting to top up the budget.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
True. I think I gave some money at the occasion as well.
It was a dope DAO. Bought a bunch of whiskey for
good times.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine what's coming. Well, there's at least three Taoist events in the making. So if you want to reboot Orochi and some of these.
Well, I mean, there are still funds on Orochi DAO. We never we did a version 1.
Oh, let me go check this actually.
Yeah, you still have your money. Version 1, we said we'll just do it only for DevCon, but we also decided to do I think you guys did a local events in Portland. Then we ended with East Waterloo. Then we said
also did a party in East Denver.
That was a version 2. So you are in a version 2 summoner, but version 1 I summoned. Then we did it as it kind of pioneered so-called season, which friends with benefit, forefront, all doing. I invented basically because I just wanted it as a purpose driven, because I don't like long-term responsibility.
You were super hard about that. I liked it.
Which is like, a lot of people talk about these kind of DAOs that just spin up and then shut down. And I think you probably were actually the one who did that first, because
yes,
with the Orochi, you were like, hey, why do we need this DAO to keep going? Maybe it should end. And I remember me being like, no, that's dumb. It should just keep going. But now it actually makes a lot of sense, and a lot of things we do are based around this.
You can kind of reset the parameter, and you can join the new pin, and also important, you can kind of refresh, because one of the stuff that there's so many people who just join and do nothing. Then before you didn't even have a rage kick, right? So it was important that you go to the one. One hack I did was that someone decided to give a share to me. Actually, that was Samantha of the Yap DAO. She said she just learned so much, so I don't need my share. The idea of Orochi DAO was we had about I think $4,000 or $5,000 worth of pot, and we just took money for the party, and we still had like 1,000 or something. So we just rage quit. So like we just get the each share. Then she said, "Oh, actually, I want to give it to you," but it didn't have such a feature. So what I did is I think I inflate the share too much, and then I just inflated rage quit to so that I can kind of take everybody's money after like everybody rage quit, and it was only me and Samantha, and I just said like Arjun is gonna inflate, and I just take yours, and yeah, that was a clever hack. Yeah, I'm praising myself. Like yeah, that was interesting.
Well,
Yeah.
that's actually how we did it with the Moloch, because the Moloch upgraded from V1 to V2, and so yeah, we gave one member a quadrillion shares or something, and then that member transferred everything through a proposal. That member was actually a minion, so that member was a minion on a V2 DAO. So it was able to just like non-custodially transfer the entire treasury from a V1 to a V2 through that same kind of method.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
how we
we
learn.
need a Orochi V3 now, and maybe you could put like just 1% of the ENS treasury in the Orochi 3.
1%. That would be wild. So I actually was interacting now with Orochi V2, and I hadn't seen Pokemon in so long, and I'm just like having mad nostalgia here with this interface.
Oh,
We
no.
still have $1,500 in Orochi V2.
Yeah, that's another DAO for party.
Yeah. Okay, I think yeah, I just went too long, but I have to kind of go. But yeah, it was great to
Thanks for
chat
coming,
with all of
Makoto.
you guys.
Thanks
Yeah,
for coming and reminiscing, Makoto. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing the alphas as well.
yeah,
And hope to
Okay.
talk soon.
yeah. See you guys.
Be well,
Bye.
my friend.
Bye.
Just
Right. So now you guys can show your stuff.
yeah.
That's Makoto. I love Makoto. He's great. He's
so
right. He was like the first DAO House user. We basically built DAO House for Makoto
Yeah, basically.
because he was having trouble forking a Moloch DAO contract.
Yeah, forking the Moloch DAO contract and the front end, and we were like, well, there's got to be an easier way. That's really what's
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Read about that.
What's up,
Yeah,
guys? Thanks for
Absolute
inviting me.
legend. Hey.
Yeah.
So,
Let's talk about how.
So yeah, guys, I've just been kind of seeking out the Bored Ape Yacht Club and kind of pitching them and some other things. And I've got a link to what seems like a pretty decent deal, and I have a great big framework for something we might be able to work on as a project.
that's cool. Yeah, we definitely should work with them. They're one of the groups that are kind of like split into factions or whatever they call them in Bored Ape, but it makes a lot of sense when these really huge kind of communities can split into smaller working groups, and so that would be cool to talk to them.
Gang.
Speaking of like NFTs, so I guess that's really the only update from us, or that I'm thinking of right now, is that we have a Metacartel launched an NFT DAO on mainnet and is doing some stuff with collecting NFTs. And we launched one on Arbitrum, even though there's no NFT scene at all on Arbitrum yet, but it's to like kind of foster that community and help it grow, because gas is too crazy on mainnet. So a couple just like use cases that we're using the DAOs for, that was cool. The other kind of cool bit of news is that a mainnet pool house is coming soon, and I won't say much else, but that's a little alpha, and it might be time to start thinking about that.
Yeah, I was definitely going to talk to you about that because I saw your Flash DAO that you put up to fund Arbitrum NFTs. I think that was a great idea. We could also run this NFT project idea I have on Arbitrum, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, if you've got a good idea and a good spec, that Arbitrum NFT DAO is doing grants for people that are building new things in markets and NFT projects and communities, DAOs. on Arbitrum?
I was actually specifically going to use Fractal and Yape Swap, which are both being built by Raid Guild right now, to move over to Arbitrum as one of our assistants in the whole idea.
Yeah, one of the guys from Fractal is in that DAO too, so that would be a good combo. I don't know, Vin, did you have any other updates from us?
I might have something to pitch actually.
Okay.
You guys know how I've been talking about this idea called buy my process, which is basically an artist starts working at something, but they start with a sketch, and that it's the first NFT or any possible directions. So you open the artistic process to the community, the directions that you're thinking of going with a piece, and then people can actually get editions of those sketches, and that group of people starts collaborating with the artist in the direction of the piece, funding the work, and then at the end when the piece is ready and it's going to be like a 1-of-1 or a 5-of-1 or 5-of-5, only those people who have bought into the process and funded the work have the right to participate, like in the auction or something. This could be a cool way to start up something. And I was thinking of doing this for the Daoist, and I was trying to look for a cheaper chain that where it could be like easier to take that risk. So here's an idea.
Sounds awesome.
Makes sense.
Yeah, definitely do it on Arbitrum.
So I was actually thinking of doing this with
just
the Blood of Moloch.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm illustrating the beer label for Blood of Moloch, and I wanted to do this out in the open because I thought it would be a nice coordination experiment to do with the Moloch, like a coordinated beer, DAO beer.
Mm-hmm. Tasty. Your illustration in the beer.
You heard it here first. Let's see if we pull this off. Actually, shout out to Annette who brought me an iPad from the States, which Van failed to do and Peter failed to do. So thank you, Annette.
Hey, you got one. Excellent. She brought you one. That's great.
Yeah, and she complained a lot. Apparently, it's really heavy, but it's also she also brought some other stuff that we're having, like the computer I'm using right now, which is pretty delicious and awesome. Thanks, Ethereum. But wait, you're gonna use a Procreate from the phone? How big is your phone? Are you gonna do finger painting on your phone? I don't know.
Of course.
I'm actually really looking forward for your finger paintings, Vanilla. Maybe we can have a vanilla finger paintings and buy my process.
Fucking love it.
Can't wait to paint with your fingers, Vanilla. But you have to be sorry. But you have to become a little bit less unknown for us to get this one happening.
Yeah, totally.
All right. Well, I guess let's make sure we.
That was fast. We're at the top of the hour.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah, that was fast. We got a couple minutes, I guess. What was your? Did you want to say more on your Bored Ape idea there, Efren?
Yeah, I would love to, for sure. I just kind of dropped the framework inside Deacon Bros messaging, but essentially I just want to create a lot of like inter-ecosystem loops of interactions. So I was thinking to use ClimaDAO and connect them to the Regen Network, who is doing like carbon creditation, but they're doing like two opposite sides of it. So one's like buying and selling carbon credits, and one's creating the futures market for credits, I assume. I was going to bring in the entirety of Raid Guild or whatever Raid Guild members want to jump on the project. But yeah, let me just check that message. Deacon might have more information.
Are you connected to the Refi Network people as well? They're organizing events and other things, also focused experiments around the Caribbean.
Perfect. That's exactly what I want to do. I actually legitimately want to help the Bored Ape Yacht Club buy a real Carnival cruise liner because they're currently about $4 million due to the pandemic. They're being sold essentially for
They
scrap
are
metal.
being sold. It's true, for scraps. Yeah. Wow.
So-
Okay. So
And then I was going to
reach
connect.
reach out to Patrick, Pat X Downstack, and also to Luke Weber, founder of my co-founder. I'm not involved because the Taoist is consuming my soul, but they're doing some mad stuff using Cello.
Right on. Yeah, that's what I want to do. I just want to create like lots of loops of ecosystems working along each other with this project because I want to install marine permaculture arrays in the ocean. And my idea for the NFT grind underneath that is, the first thing that you put in a seaweed array is the seaweed, but that attracts lots of microorganisms and small critters. But then those bring in larger critters until you eventually end up with whales. And I was just going to create like a cycling NFT program where, you grow, you consume,
The
get
whale
burned,
farm.
you die.
I love the big ideas, but I guess we are out of time.
Yes, we're out of time and we're getting solar punk as fuck. Maybe the next episode could be solar punk dreams with HAUS. Good luck with your whale farm, Apparent. I want to visit the whale farm.
Damn straight. Hell yeah.
Whale farm brings the whales to the yard.
Okay. Yeah. Guys, thank you for coming to the garden. We have to close. Further discussion on the whale farm idea on an aquatic garden that lives in the future. See you guys soon, and thanks for watching the 40, 50 people that have been here consistently. It's been a joy. Have a good night, everybody. Good day.
Bring on, everybody.
And by the way, the today's Pro app is dope. So don't miss it.
It is super dope. Yeah, yeah.
Ciao.
Thanks, y'all.